Okay, we're live. Need to figure out how to get like intro music to play while this is happening, so it's not just sitting here awkwardly. One day I'll make that happen. All right. All right, come on in, everybody. Welcome back to another Tennessee Holler Facebook and Twitter and YouTube live hour. I'm Justin, the Holler founder. We are at tnholler.com is where you can find us. At the TN Holler on Twitter and Facebook. We also have all of these sweet hollers throughout the state, and that's all thanks to your support. So we really do appreciate that. It really does help, and chipping in a few bucks monthly goes a long way. I also want to mention and shout out to our new sponsor, Elisa Parker, who is a realtor in Middle Tennessee, and we really appreciate her support. So if you know anybody buying or selling a home in Middle Tennessee, steering them her way is a way to support the Holler. So we really appreciate what Elisa's doing, and that's how we're able to stay here and grow. Today, we're going to talk to two teachers in Knoxville. Obviously, just to tee this up, we've seen all kinds of bad news throughout the state. Tennessee is now the number one worst outbreak in the country, maybe the world at this point. Something that we're certainly not proud of. It's been out of control. A lot of it is kids. Hospitals are filling up. Yesterday, I was at the Capitol when some doctors showed up to talk to Governor Lee. He ran away from them, and we can watch that video a little bit later. Didn't want to talk about that. Didn't want to talk about teachers like Bill Rapoon in Sumner County who just died from COVID complications. He's not the first. There have been others. Governor Lee has never mentioned any of them. And now we have 27 school districts closed throughout the country. One of them is not Knox County, but we have two teachers here from Knox County to talk to us about what's going on. And they are both conveniently named Andrea. Andreas, how are you guys doing today?
We're good. How are you?
I'm good, but more importantly, how are you guys? Let's start with you, Andrea T. How are you feeling right now as a teacher in Knox County?
I feel the way a lot of us describe feeling closer to the end of a school year in terms of just exhaustion and expelling of our energy, time, resources, etc. So it's alarming to feel sort of April tired in August, for sure.
April tired in August. That's well said. Andrea, do you also feel that way?
Yeah, it's pretty exhausting, especially, when we think about the fact that it's only been 4 weeks. It's exhausting and demoralizing some days, but I've got a good team of people around me right now, and that's helpful and that's supportive, so I'm thankful for that.
So, Andrea Menendez, what is the situation in Knox County right now? I know it is not one of the 27 school districts to be closed. I believe you just had a school board meeting where a mask mandate was voted down 5-4, but I don't actually think that would have mattered much because we have an opt-out throughout Tennessee. So these mask mandates really aren't much good because Governor Lee is superimposing himself over these local decisions. So what's the situation in Knox County, and what, if anything, is the county doing to keep you and students safe?
Right now, things are pretty dire when it comes to numbers. Hospitals are filling up, as you saw the graph or that you just showed. It's where our exponential growth line is basically vertical at this point. Classroom sizes, I can only speak for my classrooms. I can't speak for the other ones in the district. But I'm kind of going back and forth between 50 to 60% attendance. And then there are other teachers in the building who at one point had between 25 and 30% attendance. Teacher attendance is also down because of positive cases. People also just being careful. We're trying to protect our kids as much as we can. Most teachers I know are wearing masks, but the second they start feeling symptoms, a lot of them are being responsible and trying to stay home to prevent the spread. But that also means we're covering for our friends and our colleagues, which takes a toll on how much we're able to plan and grade and do all those other normal teacher things that we need to do to keep our classrooms running efficiently.
And Andrea T, are you also having staffing issues where you are? And if anything, what is being done around your school to keep you safe? Are any kids wearing masks? Are the rest of the teachers wearing masks? What's the situation?
I mean, what's being done, I can best categorize as just grassroots, people sort of taking it upon themselves to take measures, but it's certainly not widespread. If I had to estimate percentage of students voluntarily wearing masks, it's more now than it was at the start of the year because they're watching a lot of their friends get really sick and they're concerned about that. But I'd say maybe between 15 and 20% of students at best are wearing masks that are present in class. And it's just sort of a constant stagger. Kids that were sick the very first week or two are now coming back into the classroom. Some of them haven't attempted to access any material, so now they're 2 weeks behind. I have other kids who are now recently out. So trying to have all of us on the same page is really challenging. Knox County also gave us a new curriculum for English classes this year. So we're trying to adapt to a brand new curriculum that has a lot of hiccups, a lot of bumps in the road, and then just staggered student attendance on top of that. It's a lot of spinning plates, and plates are falling inevitably as we try to spin all of them.
Andrea Menendez, it seems to me that there is this culture of fear throughout the state among teachers. We get messages, dozens a day from teachers, something as simple as like telling us their COVID leave policy. They're worried that even people knowing that they're talking to us is going to get them fired, even just telling us a policy. So, can you speak to that sense of fear that teachers are feeling, not only about the disease itself, but also about feeling like, are we even able to talk about this without fearing for our jobs?
Yeah, that's especially difficult because a lot of us don't really have the facts about what we can get fired for and what we can't. We've lived and taught this way for so long that I think we've started to police ourselves, which maybe, that works best for the people at the top. They don't really need to crack down on us as much because we crack down on ourselves because we're so scared. But you're exactly right. Every time I've talked to other teachers, whether it's teachers through Facebook or their social media or just within the school, teachers are afraid of whatever this nebulous, weird potential consequence could be for speaking out. And I made a social media post last weekend that I was asked to take down. It was kind of revealing a few facts about what was happening in our district. And I don't really want to speak about exactly what was in the content of that post because I was asked to take it down by our district. They gave me a board policy. Basically, the board policy, to summarize, I got the civility code, which is a board policy basically telling people to be nice to each other, be professional, use professional language. In my post, I wasn't name calling. I didn't say anything that wasn't true. And the other board policy I got was basically the chain of command that a complaint should go through. So because I was speaking on issues of public policy, or public interest, masks especially, and, I was talking about a message that was sent to all KCS families. I wasn't talking about anything private. I wasn't talking about anything that was specific to my school or my building or faculty. But I went ahead and I took it down because I want to pick my battles, and I want to play the game, and I want to be able to speak as much as I can. So yeah, teachers are really scared. If you don't mind, I'd love to give a few pieces of advice for teachers who are wanting to speak out.
Absolutely.
I think the reason that we are feeling so demoralized is because it feels like the people on the other side, and I hate the fact that there are sides, but it sounds like and feels like the people on the other side are so much more effective, or there's so many more of them in numbers, arguing against masks and against mitigation efforts. But I think one of the reasons that side is so successful is because they are relentless. And they're emotional. They have facts. They're not always true. They're rarely true, but they're emotional and they're relentless. And we're not having the same impact because those of us who have the most passion, those of us who are the teachers, are afraid to speak. So yeah, my call to teachers right now, if you're a teacher and you're listening, whether you're in Knox County or you're somewhere else across the state in another public school that's feeling the same restraints, I'm just begging you to share your personal stories. You can't get in trouble for simply sharing your own personal experience. And that's the key. So a few concrete actionable things that you can do as a teacher as you're sharing these stories is to just make sure that you are staying factual, but you're also being emotional and you're being unrelenting. You're being relentless. We need to flood as many places as possible with our individual stories. So when you tell these stories, make sure that you are keeping it personal to what you know and what you have experienced. We all have good guesses about what's happening other places in the district, other parts of the state. But if you keep it personal to what you've experienced in your own classroom and more teachers speak up, it's going to become really obvious really quickly that your experience is not unique. And that's how we can kind of flood the airways with the truth of what's happening in the classrooms. Another thing is be emotional and passionate, but be civil. That's, like I said, that was the code that I got shown to me. So just making sure that you are speaking professionally and respectfully, that can be really hard, but you can speak passionately and still stay on topic, stay with your facts. That feels like something you'd say to a kid, but especially now we're all so angry. And it's easy to say something that we would regret later or something that would legitimately get us fired. And then just being meticulous in your truth telling. Another thing that we do every day, no matter if we're telling stories to our friends and family about things even things that were good that happened to us, sometimes we have the tendency to exaggerate details or facts for the sake of making a point. And we do it unintentionally. All of us do it. It's just like a part of narrative storytelling. But making sure that you are saying exactly what you experienced and you can prove that happened. And then document everything. Every interaction you have with an administrator or every interaction you have with a colleague, anything that happens on social media or through email, just take little notes. And then the last thing is familiarize yourself with the board policies. There's a lot of them probably in your district, wherever you are, but they should be public knowledge. I just found mine by Googling Knox County Schools board policies. And I found a whole list of links that brought me to all of them. And before I showed up today, and before the press conference on Wednesday, I made sure to click through and just be like, do I know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not allowed to say? And regardless of all those things, you may do everything right. And somebody may try and scare you. I think that's kind of what happened when I got my 2 policies shown to me. I don't think they really could have gone any farther than they did. But I played the game. I made sure that I did everything right. And I made corrections when I felt like I needed to make corrections. And those are the concrete things that I can say to any teacher. Be emotional, but be factual, and document everything. And you'll be surprised that you're going to be safer than you think in a lot of situations. Obviously, this doesn't go for everybody. So if people are still scared to speak out, letters to the editor, emails to board members and superintendent, phone calls to reps or representatives, or if you have a relationship with a parent in your community, it doesn't necessarily need to be a parent of a student that you taught. It's probably good if it isn't. If you can find a trusted parent, I feel like somebody talking to a little kid, like find a trusted adult when something bad has happened and tell your story to them and ask them to share it for you at a board meeting. Mm-hmm. Those are all ways that you can keep yourself safe and still continue to share your stories. So that's my little run through for things I've learned in the past week.
No, I think that's all really helpful. And I want to add to that, we've had a lot of anonymous messages to the holler and we'll always keep people anonymous. So if you have a testimonial or something that you want to write in our inbox and ask us to not mention who you are, we'll always put those out. Andrea T, do you want to add anything to that?
It was pretty comprehensive. And I guess when I'm thinking about my own reasons and motives for speaking out, on some level, it's for teachers who just are not going to be able to find that level of comfort to share their story. So I want to speak on their behalf and have been asked to speak on their behalf by many teachers in my district or just other people I know who are in public ed. And also because we have tried a lot of other avenues. We're concerned about the safety conditions in our workplace for ourselves, but also for our students who don't have the same access or the same voice that they can raise. And so think about your motives for speaking out, and if those are pure, and if you do you're doing what you feel is right. I feel like that's brought me some comfort as well.
So you just had a board meeting in Knox County. It went 5-4 against a mask mandate. I just wanted to show one thing that we noticed. This is one of your board members, Mike McMillan, who was going nappy time during the board meeting, and he was one of the 5 votes against. We posted this, and it went pretty viral within the Knoxville community. I think it's important. Look, he's clearly on the older side. I understand getting tired when you're older, but this is too important to be sleeping through. So I think everybody should be letting Mike know how they feel about that when something is this important is going on. Andrew Menendez, what happened at the board meeting? And, is there any hope for anything else to come from the board, or are they pretty hopeless?
The board feels a lot like the Supreme Court in some ways. You know the members, they've been there a while, or some of them have, and you kind of always know which way they're going to vote. And there's a few swing votes every once in a while. I wish I could have told you what the board meeting was like in person, but kind of at the last minute, they limited it to 60 speakers, which they've never had a limit before. And they also, at the last minute, limited the seating to only people who signed up to speak. So there is a cutoff time the day before a meeting for when you can sign up to speak. And Andrea T and I both called, left a message, but we were too late to get in the meeting. I know Andrea T was able to watch a lot of it on the live stream. So she can probably speak a little bit more about what exactly people said and like what the feeling was of hearing all those testimonies. I think we had a friend who tried to keep score for both sides. Again, these numbers are not, I can't confirm these numbers one way or the other, but I believe she said 27 of the speakers wore for masks, and 20 were saying something against them.
That's pretty good. I mean, that's better than most places are doing as far as the for and against. Andrea, what was your experience like watching it?
Yeah, I mean, the public forum, I think, would have been exhausting for anyone to sit through, but as board members, that's their job. That's what they have been elected to do, and to listen to constituents and stakeholders. And I would echo what Menendez said. It was a lot of foregone conclusions, to be honest, in terms of the decisions that would come out of that meeting. But it was just disheartening to hear some of the reasoning. A lot of the reasoning I was hearing from members who chose not to enact any kind of policy was like, not everyone will do it, so what's the point? And that's reasoning that I have problems with as an educator and just as a citizen. I mean, if that's how we made a lot of decisions, we would be in a lot of trouble. So even with the opt-out that you mentioned that parents would have were we to enact a policy, it still would have, even on a symbolic level, I think just shown they were attempting to support educators in their classroom, that they're acknowledging we have literally thousands of people absent every day. This is not normal. It's a crisis. It would have been just a base acknowledgement of this is an emergency. We need to make some sort of response to say we see that that's happening and we need to respond to it.
Right. And I think it's important to point out that, nobody wants masks. It's not like this is something we all want. The masks are there so that we can get back to not wearing masks quicker. And, it's an acknowledgement that this is a real problem. And I think that's the biggest problem we have with our leadership right now. We've got people like Jason Zachary in your area talking about how great it is that thousands of people are getting together for a football game. Governor Lee yesterday at the press conference, we put together this little meme of him saying it's fine as things burn all around him. And he says he has no plans to change his strategy. Here he was running away from the doctors. It's just generally feeling like leadership does not want to acknowledge what's going on. And the longer that happens, the longer this is going to last. Appreciate you guys doing this. Just as some final thoughts here, I would like to ask you each if you had something to say to Governor Lee and state leadership, what would it be? Andrew Menendez, let's start with you.
Whew, that's a big question. Civility code. Remember the civility code. Please help. Just please. This does not just affect children, and that is the rhetoric I hear over and over and over again. And at this point, it's not true with the Delta variant that it doesn't affect children. It does. But even when it was affecting children at a smaller rate, I am an adult, and I also work in that school building, and all of those children go home to adults. We should focus, obviously, on the people that are most affected. And it's not just people inside school buildings. Every failure to take action affects the entire state, not just those in public education.
Andrea T., do you have anything to say?
Number one, I think it would be nice to acknowledge the educators who have succumbed to this virus. I think it would be meaningful to acknowledge the severity of what's happening as a starting point. And also, I just think about what I try to teach to my students, which is to listen to experts, to follow science, to follow reasoning and critical thinking. And it's the least we can do as adults to model that. So we know what works to slow the spread of this virus. It's not complicated. It's also not political. It's a matter of public health. And I even stating that, it feels so obvious. I'm not really sure how we're here needing to state these things, but obviously we are. It's unacceptable to be in a place where transmission is virtually the highest on the planet. And we're not seeing any people in a position of power attempting to mitigate that. It's unacceptable to me as a citizen. Just, it is. I don't know.
I understand. You mentioned the severity and the teachers succumbing to it. I just want to end by sharing a video here. This is yesterday at the Capitol. I was there to ask a question. Shockingly, he didn't call on me. So I was left to ask him about those teachers that you're talking about as he left the podium. And this was how it went down.
Governor, you mentioned the fallen soldiers. Will you mention the fallen teachers? Do you have any plans to mention any of the teachers that have already died in Tennessee? One in Sumner County last week.
Governor Lee, you want to get a meeting with you. Governor Lee, you want to know as a freshman man how you feel about children getting sick and dying of COVID when this could be prevented with universal.
So that was doctors that were waiting out there for him. He ran from me. He ran from them. He's running from teachers. He's running from his responsibilities to this state. And I appreciate that you guys are not, I know this isn't what you signed up for when you became teachers. And, you're asking for help. You deserve the help. And I'm sorry that you're not getting it right now. And hopefully, it won't take more teachers passing and more kids getting sick for people to wake up and realize what's really going on here. So thank you both for doing this very much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Take care. So those are two teachers in Knoxville. Appreciate you guys following along. I see our resident troll Carlos in the comments minimizing everything. Obviously not a teacher who's putting his life on the line every day. Carlos, at some point, maybe you're going to stop joking around and take things seriously. It's really unconscionable that you're making light of this situation. And, this is not a joke. These are our kids, my kid's in kindergarten. She's in there wearing a mask. She's not, in the majority doing that. A lot of the kids aren't. Her PTO president of her school just died, died. I mean, and then an email goes out and it doesn't talk about how she died. So that's not really helpful because, then people don't realize how severe this is. Just like when Coach Rapoon died in Sumner County, it took him a week to come out and announce. Nobody even announced it. WKRN found out that he died of COVID. We had already known it, but we couldn't get it confirmed. So people need to understand how serious this is. And when we don't talk about the people who are dying from it, when we sort of cover that up, we prolong this. is the bottom line. Learning loss is serious. Carlos, okay, I see you saying learning loss is serious, but the learning loss is happening because the virus is spreading and schools are closing and schools don't have the options to remote teach. So, this learning loss is serious thing, it just doesn't hold water, because if you really care about learning loss, you should be willing to do whatever it takes to keep kids in school. And that's have masks, that's get vaccinated, which I'm assuming you're not. So, generally speaking, your arguments don't make any sense. And what really exposes them as bad faith arguments in my eyes is there's no amount of death or sickness that will change your mind. If tomorrow the cases went down and, suddenly the hospitals weren't as full as they already are, people who are for masks and vaccinations would change their tune. I wouldn't be saying wear a mask if the virus wasn't spreading, but there's no amount of viral spread or death that would change your tune. We now know that. So that's a bad faith argument. When no new information will change your mind, that's a bad faith argument. And so what we're dealing with right now is a bad faith argument coming from people who are operating from a political position, not a human, being first position. And that's why we're not getting anywhere. So we have the worst spread in the whole country, maybe the world right now. Massachusetts, which is a state the size of Tennessee, has like 400, 500 people in the hospital. We have 3,500. They're over 70% vaccinated. We're at like 40%. These are data points that are inarguable, but you guys are not going to take them on. You're not going to believe them. You're going to call me fake news, whatever you're going to call me, it's fine. Meanwhile, you have teachers who are scared to go to work. You have schools closing, and you have a governor who is literally running from doctors who are really just asking for the simplest thing, which is let school districts impose a mask mandate if they feel they need it. He's constantly talking about local control, but he doesn't actually mean it. So that's where we are right now. And it's really sad. It's scary for a lot of people. And, your arguments, deaf kids can't see through masks. Okay. Yes, they can't, but they also get COVID. So, there are things that we have to deal with, and, your talking points are frankly tired and you need new ones. And so does Governor Lee. Thank you all for joining us at the TN Holler on Twitter and Facebook. We will continue to pressure them. I hope you guys will all go speak out at your local meetings, follow all the hollers throughout the state, and stay involved, because that's the only way that we make any progress around here. Take care.